Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us. We've got a special webinar today. We're going to run through the 2020 State of Customer Success Report. I'm joined by our founder and CEO, Dave Blake. Dave, hey, how are you? Can you hear us okay?
Hey, Mark. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. Hope everybody's doing well wherever you are. Curious where you're all calling in from.
Yeah,
If you're
popping out in the chat pane, see where everybody is. Got Chicago.
LA.
We got some folks in Toronto, New York, Florida, Atlanta, Tucson, Utah. We got some Canadians, Santa Clara, all over the
Brazil.
place. Michael calling in from Moscow. Very good, very good. Glad everyone could be here. So we're really excited to do today's session. This has been kind of 2 to 3 months in the making, and really excited to bring you the results. We've never done one of these state of customer success surveys before, and so we got some really good insights, really good stuff that we'll go through, and we'll also make it a bit of a Q&A. Kind of the game plan for today is, what I'll do is right at the very top, I'll give you kind of a quick high-level run through of some of the results, some of the trends that we saw in the survey. And then from there, me and Dave will do kind of a walkthrough, a deep dive of, let's say, maybe 5 or 6 areas that are of interest. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. So we'll have the Q&A open. If you have questions, pop them into the chat pane, just like usual, either the chat pane or the Q&A. Feel free. I'll be monitoring that the entire time. So we'll do that for probably 20, 25 minutes, depending on how long you guys have questions. Then what we'll do is we have a really cool announcement toward the end, and then we'll wrap up at the very end by doing the prize winners. So everybody that took the survey, the 400 plus folks that actually took the survey, they're going to get entered to win one of 5 really cool Apple prizes. So we'll do that at the very end. So is that good to go? You good to go, Dave?
Let's do it. Yep, let's do it.
All right, so let's jump in. So the first thing that I want to highlight here, a lot of you might not be familiar with client success, who we are, what we do. Why in the world would we consider doing a state of customer success report? And the reason is because we live and breathe customer success. This is our world. And so if you're new to client success, what we are, we're a customer success growth platform. And so what we do is we help with all things related to the customer journey. We're going to help you drive better onboarding, better adoption, better renewals, better growth, anything that your customer success team needs to drive a great customer experience. That's our world. That's what we do. We'll take all that, give really good insights into your leadership team, allow you to collaborate on behalf of customers, take your customer success information, put that into Slack, put that into Microsoft Teams so you can collaborate and have really good discussions on it. You'll see here we're a leader on G2, customer success category, also the 2020 Cody Award winner for the best customer success solution. So this is just our life. This is what we do. This is what we live for. And so getting a pulse on what's going on in the industry is really what we're all about. And so if you want to learn a little bit more, chat more about your customer success strategy, let us know. We're at clientsuccess.com. You can email me directly. I'm Mark with a K at Client Success. And just really looking forward to chatting with everyone about it. But let's jump into the survey itself. So I'll give you kind of a high level idea of kind of what we did, and then what were some of the results. So you can see here on the slide here, we surveyed north of 400 customer success professionals all over the world. And what we found is that we ended up doing about 70% North America. Then there was the rest of the majority was in EMEA. We did get a few folks from LATAM and APAC signing up, but really what it ended up being was about 350 companies of broad different ranges. So we had a bunch of companies, probably about 2/3 of which were either early stage startup, Series A, Series B funded startups, and definitely some scale up, some Series C, Series D. That's probably about 2/3 of the bucket. The other third was much more your enterprise, your large public companies. And so we got a broad range of different types of companies and insights from them. And at a high level, the big trends that we noticed, the first one that really got us excited was the fact that customer success is growing. You know, even during a pandemic, even during a recession, companies as a whole are still growing their customer success teams. We did find that there was a small portion, about 12% of companies that had cut some of their CS heads, But as a whole, even right now, over the last 6 months, we saw people growing. So we'll dig more into that. Really excited about that result. The next thing that we spent a bunch of time in is trying to figure out where are CSMs spending a lot of their time? What's the day-to-day life of a CSM look like? And what we found there was that they spend the overwhelming majority, probably 80% of their time, on what I'd call customer enablement tasks. They're doing onboarding, they're doing adoption, they're doing implementations, those types of things, and much less, maybe 18-20% of their time on revenue specific tasks like renewals, growth. We're going to have a big discussion around that and get some of Dave's thoughts there. The next thing that we saw was that organizations are putting a big emphasis on their customer experience. And so I keep thinking back to a quote that I read last year from Brian Halligan, CEO of HubSpot, where he talked about 10 years ago in software, your product had to be 10x better than your competition. But today, it's more about your experience. Your experience needs to be 10x better. And a lot of companies are thinking about that. So really interesting there. We'll dig into that. Two more areas that we'll dig into is just the fact that the customer success seems also to be working. Not only are people growing their teams, but it's working because the average net revenue retention rate of the 350 companies we talked to was about 99%, which is awesome. There's a ton of really healthy SaaS companies out there driving a ton of great value, even with everything that's going on. Really good to see. And then what we'll wrap up with is the diversity section. Diversity is extremely important, not just in our industry, but in every industry globally. And what you'll notice there is that we looked at it from two angles. We looked at it gender diversity and we looked at it from racial diversity. And at a high level, it turns out that on the front line, you'll see we have pretty good, about 50-50 gender diversity in the industry. Not quite, but almost. A little bit less as you move up the ranks. And where we have a lot of room to grow is in the racial diversity side. So a bunch more we'll go into there, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys some high level, broad strokes. But let's start with the growth portion. And this is where I want to bring you in, Dave. So at a high level, what we found in the results was that 58% of teams grew over the last 6 months. About 30% just held steady, and only about 12% saw a reduction. So yeah. Were you as surprised by that as perhaps I was? I was shocked when I saw that. I was expecting, I remember seeing March and April when every time you loaded up LinkedIn, it was just this depressing, run through of different companies laying off customer success folks. But at the end of the day, it turns out it was only about 12% of companies. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I think that what we saw was the very visual aspects of this trend, this COVID crisis, where there were definitely a lot of companies who laid off employees, not just customer success professionals, but employees in general. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we saw many of our friends throughout the industry who were impacted, and our hearts went out to them. We did our best to help them find jobs. And there may be some still out there, and we're always happy to help if you're one of those individuals. What I think, though, is that from what we didn't see as much kind of posted on LinkedIn and such were the teams that doubled down on customer success, who realized during the COVID crisis that sales pipelines were drying up. A lot of budgets were on freeze. And so people weren't buying software early on. And so that resulted in teams saying, hey, the most savvy teams decided to double down on their current customers. Mm-hmm. And started to shift headcount, maybe from sales in the short term to post-sales customer success in order to take care of their existing customer base. So a little bit, I think, the visually out there, we saw a lot of companies impacted, but I was glad to see the results of the survey where we saw teams who were very savvy and very smart and decided that this was the time to double down on customer success. And the cool thing is it feels like they're roaring back now. I mean, sure. I see a ton of customer success job openings now. And so hopefully we can get all those folks who are impacted back to work as quickly as possible.
There's another side of this that I thought was interesting, is the fact that, as you've kind of seen customer success evolve over the last 10 years, there's kind of been, different schools of thought on where does customer success live? Who do they report into? Do they report up through the sales team? Do they report up through the product team? Do they report up through their own function? And as of right now, it looks like about 41% of companies have their CS leaders, the actual CS org, reports directly to the CEO. So that tells you, even more companies are getting it. I bet if we had done this 5 years ago, that number would be sub 20%.
I agree. And that's a really positive sign to see more and more the value that CEOs and boards are placing on customer success, having them report into the CEO. And that's how it should be, frankly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's different situations that require different org structure. But really in this day and age, and to really take care of your customers right, you want the customer success team reporting directly into the CEO and be empowered through that type of alignment.
Yep, exactly. A few questions in the chat pane about what we're going to do with the report. Are we going to share the report? Yeah. So what we're doing today is we're going through the high level results. And then as soon as we're done here, we're going to send out not only an infographic, but a much more detailed, probably about 20-page full report of all the results. So we're going to be sending that out. You'll hopefully get that this afternoon. If you don't get it this afternoon, you'll get it first thing in the morning. So let's jump on to pay structure models. It looks like there's really kind of 3 schools of thought out there in the industry, and about half of the companies out there are doing a base plus bonus model, and then a quarter are doing just a base, straight up, base only, and a base plus commission. Now, I wasn't terribly surprised by this. This kind of feels like it makes the most sense. I was a little bit surprised that a full quarter of companies have just base only, no incentive, no bonus, no commission structure, et cetera. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, Dave.
I was actually surprised by that, the 25% on base only as well. And frankly, I was a little bit surprised by the lower percentage on commission as well. And when we talk about commission, it doesn't mean that we're turning our customer success teams into sales reps. But I think that there's this, I see more and more in the industry, people going to a commission model that they get more of the upside on the retention and growth that typically comes through a commission type model. My guess is that there's the base, if you look at the base plus bonus and commission, it's 75%. Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy to see that. I think that the CSMs deserve some upside, whether it's bonus based or whether it's commission based.
Sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one thing we'll talk about a little bit more as we get down the road, and one thing we talk about on a lot of our webinars is the discussion around, does customer success actually own revenue in one degree or another? I suspect that the 25% that's base only are going to be majority people who are either in kind of customer success related roles that just don't own revenue, maybe like an onboarding or an adoption role, or in just companies where the customer success team just doesn't own some portion of revenue. But let's switch from here to the day-to-day life of a CSM. This one actually really surprised me. And so if I go through these results, I'm going to bucket this and kind of take the adoption, implementation, onboarding bucket and put that into one bucket and call that kind of customer enablement. These are the things that a CSM's doing every day to make sure that customers are successful, make sure that they're using the platform, make sure that everybody's trained. And then on the other side, you have the expansion and renewals, only 18%. And I'm going to call that much more, revenue producing. And so the other one maybe is more like revenue influencing. And this is more revenue producing. I was surprised to see that the revenue producing bucket was so low. What are your thoughts?
I actually think that this should be fairly in line with what I would hope. And let me explain my logic there. I believe that if CSM and their team can really drive results in the enablement phases from onboarding to adoption, then hopefully the expansion renewal, the amount of time you're spending on an expansion renewal will be less. because they're
Got
getting
it.
value. There's a natural forward motion to renew, and there's a natural forward motion to expand because they're getting the value. So I actually am okay with this result and feel like that's where, they've got 44% of their time in adoption phase. I like that. I like CSMs focusing on that, driving adoption, aligning to objectives and delivering to those objectives. And hopefully if they do that right, that time and effort will result in a very easy renewal and expansion discussion, whether they own it or whether their colleagues in the sales team own that expansion.
Got it. Yep.
And
My
renewal.
guess is you would buy into the old Bill Walsh, the old 49er coach idea of, if you take care of everything you need to, the score takes care of itself. This kind of feels like a score takes care of itself thing, where if I focus on the things that actually influence revenue, get everybody adopted, get everybody on board, get everybody implementing, the expansion and renewals, that just kind of is a byproduct of us doing our job.
Yeah, I agree. And there's some questions here. Maybe I'll take Mark. I'm going to jump in here. Samantha talked about what's the difference between onboarding and implementation. Sometimes those terms are used synonymously. And it just depends on the company. There's some products that require a very more technical implementation process that maybe another team would do. It's the configuration, the implementation, whereas sometimes onboarding may just be more of that enablement process. It's the kickoff call, the goal alignment, the training and enablement to get them up and running. So that's how you might differentiate the two. And then
if we probably had a Venn diagram, there probably would be a decent amount of overlap between those two.
Exactly. And then I think Russell asked a good question, and Mark, maybe you're 39% combined for implementation and onboarding seems really high. There is a part that I would say in here, and maybe there's some questions about how do these metrics differ by company size and stage, whether they're early stage companies or enterprise, and maybe we could surface some of that data later if I can pull it up. But Russell, I think here's my philosophy with implementation and onboarding. It may not be everybody's philosophy. If you look at that 39%, I look at that part as a means to the ends. That we need to do whatever is the optimal experience, deliver the optimal experience for our customers to be able to easily adopt our product. And sometimes an onboarding implementation phase may take 10 days. Sometimes it may take 10 weeks. At the end of the day, the way I look at it is that you deliver the required experience during that time in order to drive high adoption. It is pretty interesting that it's high, but hopefully what that's doing is helping to make the adoption phase that much more successful once they're live with the product.
Sure.
Hopefully that
makes a lot of sense.
That's one perspective.
Cool. And Susan, you just asked kind of a tactical question of what did we actually use to capture this? I think we used Typeform was our survey tool that we used to capture all of those. And it was cool. We were able to have the Typeform itself and send out the link to that, but we were also able to embed it into a landing page within our website. So that's what we ended up using for this pretty popular survey tool. Okay, I think we've gone through that bucket of questions. Let's go on to, so the first, we actually had two sides of this, where do CSMs spend their time question. We had this one, which was like, what almost kind of parts of the customer life cycle do you spend your time on? The next is more, I would consider tactical, of like, what tools are you using day to day? What types of meetings are you in day to day? Like if I just pulled up your calendar and looked at it every day, what would it look like? And this is, there's no one area that just dominates a CSM's time. They have a lot going on. They're spending time in customer email. They're spending time in internal communications. Maybe that's internal email, internal chat systems like Slack or Teams. They're working on tasks. They're working in, 20% of their time is in combining with their CRM or their CS tool. They spend some time in spreadsheets. I mean, it's just a hodgepodge of stuff. I was really surprised to see that only 13% of their time is in customer meetings. That's the one that jumped out to me.
Yeah, I think that I would love to see that improve. I agree. You've got customer related email, so they are engaging with our customers, and that seems to be a standard, channel to be able to do that. I think internal meetings, my hope is that internal meetings would reduce a little bit. Hopefully they're specifically focused on customers, the majority of those meetings. But yeah, I think that if you were to ask most CSMs,
unfortunately, I bet the answer is not.
I know it's persuasion on behalf of your customers and things like that. But I would like to see next year, I'd love to see customer meetings increase. I'd love to see that to be 20 to 40%, and try to see how we can optimize the rest of this as an industry and even as a partner to spend more time with the customer.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a hodgepodge of different kind of things that are going on out there. So I think there's, potentially interesting innovation to be done there to bring the tools related stuff down and increase the amount of customer meetings. There's one thing actually on the last slide that I wanted to highlight here is I want to jump back just for a second. So what we found is that, okay, this is where, people are spending their time. In fact, 70% of the respondents also said, not only is this kind of how I spend my time, but I'm also, as a CSM, like I'm responsible for every single one of these stages. I'm an onboarding specialist. I'm an adoption specialist. I run expansion deals. I run the renewals. So, I mean, at the end of the day, those folks, that 70% of CSMs, they're spread super thin right now.
Yeah.
What advice would you have? Like, is that kind of, it is what it is? That's what that's the game we've signed up for. Would you advise teams and companies to think a little bit more about specialization? What are some of your thoughts there?
I think it depends. And I think there's a couple things. One is I think a CS organization should be willing to embrace owning the life cycle from what we call new to renew. I think they should be willing to embrace it. And I think that the customer success leaders need to become very good coaches about how to equip their CSMs to be able to handle all parts of the life cycle. But I think as companies start to scale up, that you start to see the specialization. And so you might have an implementation and or an onboarding team. You might have renewal specialists, et cetera. So I think that's a part of our evolution, is that and I think it's a good thing that we're able to own more of the customer journey. And I think it really just depends on the product, the company, and the stage that determines when you should start specializing across that journey.
And I bet even if we peel back the onion kind of on that maturity idea, if we go back to super early stage companies, which we didn't have a ton of in the surveys, but like there's a lot of really early stage companies that there's another bucket of here of customer support. And that, kind of you start where you're doing support and success, trying to be proactive and reactive. And then really the majority of people in this survey had gotten a little bit beyond that. So they were at least splitting off support and success. And the success folks are spending this time. And then, like you said, as they expand over time, they'll get there. Interestingly enough, in a couple of weeks, we're doing a webinar with Peter Amarley, who runs a big part of customer success at Oracle. So he's doing, customer success at a huge scale. And I'll be sure to ask him these questions around how do you specialize? Do you guys think, specialize through the journey or not? So.
Can I dig in real quick there, Mark, before we go on? I really think that's the case. My guess that if we would have added support related tasks in the survey, I'll bet you that might be the 44% of their activities, unfortunately. Like
could be.
Ty put in there that sometimes CS can be a stopgap. I agree with you, Ty. When I ran customer success for a portion of the Adobe business back in the day, we did an analysis to dive in there and found that a big portion of the CSM team is doing support related activity. So my suggestion for CS leaders out there is dig in and really understand that. If they are, work with your support counterpart to optimize that, get it off their plate so they can be focused on these value added activities.
Sure. So coming back over here, Samantha asked a question when we were earlier digging in on the 13% customer meetings. What should the ideal be? Do you have an ideal? For me, my answer is probably just more. I don't know if I have a specific ideal. Do you have an ideal that you would shoot for of the amount of time a CSM is spending in customer meetings versus some of this other stuff?
I mean, I would love to see at least 50% of their time. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the folks in the chat, but wouldn't it be great if CSMs could spend 50% of their time with customers on the phone, helping them, driving adoption, driving enablement, and the other time, the minority part of the time would be around meetings for their customers, or driving activities and improvements for that customers. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing a correlation between the amount of, time that a customer, just the amount of customer success results that you have, and the net retention of the business. I mean, if we would have ran this result, we'll talk about in a minute how the average net revenue retention for a SaaS company today is about 99%. I bet if we ran that 5 years ago, it's nowhere near that. And the big difference is that, products have gotten better. But also companies have just staffed up their customer success teams. They're getting it more and more. So
agreed.
Let's go to the next one. There's a ton of stuff in this slide. So we could easily probably spend an hour digging in here. I just want to pull out a few things that I noticed here. And then Dave, you can obviously, put in some of your other thoughts. So we have, these first 3 bars that, let's call it about 2/3 of respondents said, our companies are more customer centric, or we consider our companies customer centric. My CEO, he or she gets, understands, values customer success, and we're properly represented at board meetings. So that bucket, that feels like progress, but it still to me is not where it needs to be. Like, this is 2020. How do 28% of CEOs, SaaS CEOs, still not get customer success? That progress, but I'm still, call it, frustrated by that. What are your thoughts?
I think that we have made progress. I think call progress what it is, and acknowledge that. But I do think we've got a ways to go. I think, CEOs that don't get it, it makes me scratch my head a little bit. And I think that there's sometimes when a CEO will be a very sales-driven CEO, and he or she will really focus on sales. And sometimes they say, hey, revenue cures all ails, and sales, growth. I'll get to customer success later. And that might be the case in these organizations. I think what happens though is that eventually it catches up to them. And they regret not getting it earlier, not investing earlier. And then they're scrambling to ramp up customer success. And that's a little bit too late. What I hope to see is more CEOs see customer success, not just as a retention strategy, but a significant growth strategy within their current customer base. And that will give them extra incentive to invest on that side. Board meetings, certainly we need to see more in board meetings. I can't imagine today that there shouldn't be any board meeting that there isn't a focus on the customer side of the business. So I would like to see that further.
Got it. Awesome. Jesse makes a comment here on the next part where I was going to get to, only about half of companies are celebrating renewals. I've never been in a company that doesn't celebrate sales deals. Everywhere I've ever been, you celebrate sales deals, even the smallest sales deal, but only half of them are still celebrating renewals. I don't know.
And this one
is kind of a WTF to me.
This one I'm going to say is a call to action for everybody on the call. If you're one of the companies that's not celebrating renewals, I would say, hey, make it a plan of action to convert and convince your leadership team to do that, or just start doing it. At the time and effort that we as customer success teams spend in taking customers for a year to drive that renewal is significant. A lot of times more than the time spent trying to close the initial deal. So let's all rally together and let's have a call to action to make sure that in our individual companies that we're celebrating renewals, we're celebrating expansion, we're celebrating success.
Yeah, for sure. The next one's here, visibility into CS metrics. Still only 60% of customer success folks, and I'm guessing this is much more kind of frontline CSMs, still don't have visibility into the overall CS metrics of the business. And that's another thing that I'd be pushing on. Like if you don't know you probably know your individual numbers, whatever numbers you're held accountable to. But if you don't know what your overall company logo, gross, net revenue retention numbers are, and how you as a team can influence those, that's something I'd just be pushing on really hard if I was in those shoes. Any other thoughts there, Dave?
No, just that I think it goes along with everything here is that as companies become more and more customer centric, as CEOs spend more time there, as boards spend more time there, those metrics rise to the top across the organization, where you start to see them communicated in town hall meetings and quarterly internal QBRs and et cetera. So I think those will come up as the others continue to come up.
Sure. Jay asked a question back on the celebrating renewals. Like, what do you kind of mean by that? Do a party with the client, do company-wide mentions and congrats. I know what it means at client success. For us, it's when a renewal comes through, we've got a shout out going out in the general Slack channel. We'll usually do an all hands meeting on Friday where we call them out, and kind of the same way that we do for new sales deals. It's thought about the same way. Party with the client. 2019, I was all for that, but maybe that doesn't happen this year. But I like that idea. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think you covered it well. It's just making sure that you're celebrating it, whether it's in a Slack channel, town hall, weekly meeting. Recognize them. I think some of the cool things that we've done and we've seen others do is not only talk about the customer that renewed and some of the things that you're doing well, but maybe even talk about the individuals you work with and show not only a logo, but also the faces, a picture of the individuals that you engage with throughout the year, and make your logos people. Turn those into people. You're celebrating an extension and a continuation of a great relationship, and just make sure that everybody's involved in that.
Exactly. So we got a lot of companies that are talking about customer success. I want to jump into this customer advisory board. This feels like something that's happened that's been out there for a long time, but obviously only 40% of companies are doing it. We did a really cool webinar back in June with a guy named Mike Gosby, who I would consider kind of the guru of customer advisory boards. If you want that, I can send out the link to that. But, Dave, for you, like, what are your thoughts on customer advisory boards? Are you surprised by this result? If you are, like, what's the call to action there?
I think that's probably in line with what I would think, just because I think customer advisory boards tend to come into play as you're scaling up, and particularly in the enterprise space. Usually early on, to be able to have the resources and the capacity to formulate a customer advisory board. It takes a lot of time. If you're going to do it right, you have to invest it in resources and time and effort to do that. So that doesn't surprise me as much. What I think that I would do is, if you're in an early stage company, there's different ways that you can get the same impact. Like we've done a thing that we call an idea exchange, where we invite customers to participate in the ideation process and the validation process of how we should evolve. And so people can go out there, they can add their ideas, other people can vote and validate. And that's another way to have this voice of the customer always present within your company if you're not ready to go to that next step and invest in a customer advisory board.
You bring up this point around the voice of the customer, and we're starting to see much more of these voice of the customer programs emerge, and they're usually part of like a customer experience team, but there's a whole, litany of literature and different things out there around voice of the customer and how does customer advisory boards, how does customer experience fit into that? I mean, we could do a whole, series of webinars on that, but, everybody on the call, I'd recommend, if you feel like you need some work there on voice of the customer or customer advisory boards, what have you, like there's a ton of really good literature out there to just Google and you'll find a ton of stuff on it.
Yeah.
Cool. We got a few more slides here to jump through. The next is I've referenced this slide probably a dozen times now. So I've already given away the story here, but I was really inspired and happy by this result. So you can see here, this was the average retention rates of the companies that were surveyed. You can see they, on average, had about an 80% gross or logo retention rate and about a 99% net retention rate. So effectively what that means for most of these companies, and those of you who, haven't spent a bunch of time schooling yourselves on the difference between all these different retention rates, is that, when they come into a month or come into a quarter, they're typically keeping 99% of the revenue that they came into the quarter with. They're not, they're at least able to upsell and expand out of whatever retention or out of whatever churn they have. But really what this means is that whatever the new sales team brings in goes immediately to the growth line. And that's why you see these companies that are, growing at breakneck pace. I mean, we've seen a bunch of news on the Snowflake IPO over the last few days. And I was reading some of their literature, and those guys have 156% net revenue retention was the number I think I read. But, that's rocket ship territory. What are your thoughts here? Were you as happy by this result as I was, Dave?
Yeah. And the first thing I'd say is just kudos to everybody on this webinar, because you are driving these numbers. This is phenomenal. To have it average these numbers is great. And so kudos to the customer success professionals on the front lines and the leaders and the teams who are driving these numbers up across the board. I think one thing to just keep, and maybe just a caution, is to think about is if you're on the call today and you're saying, hey, my numbers are way lower this or somewhere lower than this or higher than this, recognize that this is an average across all the participants across all different customer segments. And so if you're an SMB customer, your benchmarks may be lower than this. SMB tends to have lower or higher churn and lower retention. Mid-market comes up a little bit, and then enterprise is typically north of 100% net revenue retention. So just keep that in mind, that depending on the primary target that you're selling to, your benchmarks, your ranges will be a little bit slightly different than this, but this is great across the board. Again,
there's so much literature out there, and there's different thought leaders like David Skock and others who have a ton of, if you want to learn a little bit more about what Dave mentioned there. Let's switch gears into some of the diversity discussions that we put in here. So as I mentioned at the beginning, really what we dug into is kind of two different schools of thought, or two different buckets. We bucketed into male, female, kind of, gender diversity, and then over into racial diversity. And really what I see here is, and this is what I mentioned at the beginning of the call, is that as far as male, female gender diversity goes, I would consider this pretty good at the frontline CSM level, almost 50-50. Now, as you go up the ranks, that 44% in the frontline isn't translating. It's not, outrageously different, but it's definitely not 44% at both. And so this is another one that, I'll call it progress, definitely not, perfection. I'm sure this is better than it was, a number of years ago, but this is one where, especially in, tech companies that, tend to, have challenges around this in general, this was what I thought was a pretty good result. Curious to get your thoughts.
I would just say that I think that the customer success space can lead out better than any other space out there in this regard. I think the women in customer success are amazing. We have amazing leaders. We have amazing customer success professionals at all levels. And so I would definitely like to see this continue to improve. And I could see a day, and I very easily and hope that we see a day where actually the numbers are swapped here. That women are definitely the majority in the space, and I really mean that. I just feel like that in my interactions and for the people that I look to for insights and inspiration, I love what we see in this regard in this space, maybe differently than other professional areas of focus. I think that we have a really good opportunity to continue to lead out here as a customer success space.
Yep, sure. So the next part here, I'll say, kind of the next bucket that we did was kind of racial diversity or people of color in customer success. And in general, this one, I didn't call it rosy news. This one told me we've got just across the board, we've got a lot of work to do here. 12% of CSMs would consider themselves people of color. 17% of customer success leaders. This is where, I'd put this as a call to action on us as a community, as us, as an industry. I'd love if, there are folks on the call that know of companies that are doing, cool initiatives, doing things that are bucking this trend. I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to be able to celebrate them. I'd love to be able to, have them on a webinar and hear about what they're doing, to raise awareness and raise their profile. Because there's just a lot more that I think we can be doing there, because the results speak for themselves, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it is, there's good and bad with every insights you get. And this one, I think there's definitely a call to action here. We've got to do better. And I hope that next year that we see this increase significantly. I think that would be a really positive thing for our space. Looks like Irene's saying that they've done some great things at Zenefits. Thanks, Irene, and I hope you're doing well. And I think we need to look at companies like this and understand and learn from them, and try to infuse some of that learning and some of that thought leadership and what I call leading out. How can we look to them who has led out and have a fast follow in that regard as an industry?
Cool. So much longer discussion on that. Love to, like I said, if there's other folks who have other comments on other companies that we could highlight and learn from, love to hear more about it. Cause I think that's, like we said, that's something we'd love to learn more about and keep pushing. I'm going to skip through a few of these other ones. This was, this one didn't come to me as a surprise. What are like the top key performance indicators that a lot of companies are running into? Net renewal and churn, user adoption, customer outcomes, expansion revenue, gross renewal, NPS, or just any type of feedback. So these were kind of the KPIs that different customer success teams were either tracking or being held accountable to. This one didn't jump out to me as terribly surprising for you, Dave. A, would this line up with your expectations? And B, are there any other kind of KPIs that you're seeing companies measure that might not fit into this bucket that could be of interest?
No, I think that this is fairly well defined. And a lot of people have different ways that they measure their CSMs, but I think I'm okay with the results here. Net renewal as the ultimate one, which is a combination of a lot of things. And I've heard in the past that NPS or CSAT is a key component of CSM performance indicators and also compensation. And I think that it should be considered, but not. I like it at sixth place against, I guess, what I'd say in these two. I don't like using NPS as one of the top performance indicators, just because I think that there's a place to NPS and CSAT, but it's one of the listening methods, not a primary one that CSM should be measured against or
Cool.
Comped against. Let's put that way.
Cool. Well, I mean, there's a ton more data here. We could go literally for the rest of the afternoon or the evening digging in here. That's, I think, what we wanted to get through in terms of data. We've got a couple other things that we want to dig into, but if there are any other kind of questions that anybody else wants to talk about, feel free to pop those in. I'll do a quick scan through. I'm not seeing, I think we've gotten through most of these questions. There's a few questions around like how this data kind of breaks out in terms of like from small companies to big companies. You'll see more of that in the detailed report. So you'll see a lot more of that. And if there's some questions that when you get the report, we still haven't answered, shoot me a note. I'm easy to find, Market Client Success, and we'll go back and look at the data because we have an enormous amount of data and we weren't able to slice and dice everything into even a 20 plus page report. So if there's other pieces of the data that you want us to look at, please let us know. Let's see. Judy says something on anything on the number of companies that have referral programs. don't know if we have referral programs in the data, but I'll go back and look on that. Cool. Anything else you want to jump into on this, Dave, or before we switch gears?
No, I think that's great.
Okay. So the reason that we did, this survey, the reason we do all sorts of different customer success content, different webinars is, as I said at the beginning, like, we're a company, we live and breathe customer success. And we really want to always be a thought leader leading out on, all things related to customer success. And one thing that we've noticed over the last year or so is that, especially in the customer success, let's call it event space, there's a ton of really good events and content geared toward customer success executives. And, even us, we have one of the sad parts about this week is that had COVID-19 not happened, we would be wrapping up our executive summit that we do every year today. So that we were originally planned to do our CS 100 summit Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week up at Sundance Resort in Utah. We've since kind of pushed that out to February. Hopefully we're able to have it. But the thing that we're realizing is that there's not enough events out there for frontline CSMs, frontline folks who are actually, delivering customer value every single day. And so this is what we're going to launch today. We're announcing that we are going to launch the first annual 2021. We're going to be doing this, early next year, CSM Summit. And so this is going to be the industry's first event put on for CSMs by CSMs. We're super pumped about it. We've been talking about it for months now. We're excited to announce it today. Dave, what else would you add there?
Oh, we're just super stoked about this. We think that, again, a lot of frontline CSMs, there's so much thought leadership, there's so much energy, so much passion, and they love to engage and network and learn from each other. And so we're really excited about announcing this. We hope that you'll be excited. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to engage the community. We're going to form a community-based planning committee and vision committee, and they will be the ones planning on it. So you're not going to see a bunch of leaders speaking up there. You're going to see your peers and those that are in the industry who you'll hear best practices and learnings and be able to share and get acquainted. So we're harnessing the passion of the community, and we're really excited to announce this and make this an annual summit for frontline CSMs.
Yeah, so we're pumped for it. I just put the link into the chat pane. So if you want to go sign up for it right now, go ahead and do it. clientsuccess.com/CSM-summit. It's there in the chat pane. Love to see, all of you signing up for it. We're going to promote it. Again, a lot more details to come. We're still working out final dates. We're still working out final speakers. We're still working out format. But this is going to be, an awesome event specifically, again, for frontline CSM. So really pumped about that. And let's wrap up with the prizes. So those of you who took the survey, there's a bunch of you on the call. What we said we would do is we were going to give away 5 Apple prizes. And so these are the prizes that we have. We got the new Apple AirPods, we've got the Beats headphones, and we've got new Apple Watches. And so we're going to do a random drawing of the people that completed the survey. And we're going to give away 5 of those right now. If you're on the call, awesome. When we announce your names, make sure you give us some excitement in the chat pane. Give us some shout outs. So here's how we're going to do this. So let me pull this up here. I found an online tool called Comment Picker. And so what I've done here, it's kind of cheesy, but it looks like it's going to get the job done for us. So what I've done is I've got all 400 plus people that actually took the survey. You can see scrolling through all their names here. So they're all here, all here, all here. And what I'm going to do is remove names from list after the draw. So you can't win more than once. And so here's what we're going to do. Pay no attention to the cheesy honey coupon thing here, but let's hit start and fire away. Who's our first winner? Our first winner is Adam Josephson. So
Adam.
Congrats, Adam.
Great.
Pumped for you. We'll get that over to you. We'll reach out to you. Is Adam on the call? I do not see Adam getting excited.
I know Adam.
All right. So that's number one. Adam Josephson's our first one. The next name, we'll start again. And if for some reason the software doesn't work and Adam doesn't join, Roger Graham, number two. All right.
Roger Graham.
Congrats, Roger. Attaboy. All right, so that's number two, Roger Graham. Number three, we'll start here. Let's see, who's number three going to be? Nina Wilkinson.
Awesome. I know.
You know Nina well. We know Nina. Runs customer success at Lob.
Yep.
Awesome. Congrats, Nina. We're gonna be excited to send it to you. And again, if you're on the call, what we're going to do is you're going to get to choose from any of those prizes. So we'll send you the results and what you can choose from. Yep. So that's three, right? Roger.
Yep, we've got three. Adam, Roger, and Nina.
All right, we got two more. So let's see here. Number four. Let's do it. Thomas Sealbinder. Congrats, Thomas.
Awesome. Congrats, Thomas.
All right, very good. And last but not least, the last one here. Let's do it. Let's see it. Let's hope for Mark Stoddard to show up. Paulina Paleo. Congrats, Paulina. Congrats to everyone. So we're excited for everyone. Thanks so much for spending the time. We would not have been able to do any of this without the time that all of you took to fill out the survey and get us all this really rich, interesting insights. So not only have you helped client success, but you've helped the entire customer success community, because now we're going to take all this data, share it in a report that everyone's going to get to read and have much better insights into how customer success runs in 2020 and what we're doing beyond. So really appreciate everyone. And Dave, any final words before we wrap up?
Thanks for joining, everybody. This is an amazing community of customer success professionals. We're excited to help share these insights that will hopefully be actionable insights that we can all continue to improve our community. We appreciate all of those who participated in the survey. We congratulate the winners who get the prizes. And we hope those that are CSMs in the trenches will join us for the CSM Summit in March 2021. Thanks for joining today.
Clientsuccess.com/CSM-summit. Sign up. I'm expecting to see 1,000 signups in the next 90 minutes. So maybe, hopefully. All right.
Thanks everybody.